1, 2. 1, 2.
Good morning.
Hi. How are you? Good. How are you?
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
Very well. Nice to be back in a building.
Yeah, isn't it?
It surely is. It makes such a difference.
Yeah.
You know,
Even having to be masked, but
even masked. That's not. You know what? It's like someone said to me the other day, "Wow, your mask matches whatever." And I said, you know what? It's our new accessory,
isn't it?
and it's just part of life now.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think too many people are giving it up. So I have no problem. I'll tell you, I went to Italy in June because my kids were here and the baby. I was at home
Yeah.
on the plane and the
That's
airport.
people's experience. Yeah.
Crazy, but don't learn it.
Well, enjoy the service.
Thank you. Love to you and your family.
Thank you. Thank you. Checking 1, 2, testing, checking our system. 1, 2, 3. Give it a second. Okay. Okay. Good morning, good Yontif. We are going to begin our service in 1 minute. So we want to make sure we have found a seat. Looks like we're both playing the same animal.
I was reading about it. Something more. Shofar. All the other animals. Different places are shofar. More of these somewhere else.
Interesting. Good morning, good Yar, Shana Tova. We are going to begin our service this morning, and I welcome all of you to Congregation Shir Ami's first day of Rosh Hashanah service for the year 5783, 2022. We are joined virtually by those who are on live stream and those of you who have joined us in our sanctuary. And we begin with Hamelech, page 106. 106.
המלך היושב על כיסא רם ונישא, שוכן עד מעון וקדוש שמו, וכתוב רננו צדיקים באדוני, לישרים נאוות תהילה. בפי ישרים תתרומם, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתקדש, ובקרב קדושים תתהלל.
ומחלות ריבות עמך בית ישראל, ועיני פרשים חמורים.
וכל דור ודור, שכן חובות לא יצאו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ביתנו, לדות להלל שבח לפאר למונן ולברך, יעלה כל יספים ולברך שלוחות אבינו שלך. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש קרא שמיים בארץ, כי לך יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה,
אמן.
בעלמא ינחלה מלכותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון
וביום אחד ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובלי זמן קריב
וינרו
אמן. יהי שמירה במברך לעולם ולעולם ולעולם יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשו
בריחו
לעילה ולעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה ושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעולמו וימרו
Amen. We rise for the Baruch Hu, page 108.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם הפותח לנו שערי רחמים ומאיר עיני המחכים.
Please be seated.
יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. עולם באוצר חיים אורות מאופל ומור יהי.
We continue on the middle of page 114.
אהבה רבה
אהבתנו אדוני אלוהינו חמלה גדולה ותרח עמלת עלינו אבינו מלכנו בעבור אבותינו שבטחו לך אבינו מלכנו ותלמדם חוקי חיים כן תחננו למדנו אבינו אב הרחמן המרחם רחם עלינו ותן בליבנו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע ללמוד ללמד לשמור ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה.
והאר עינינו
בתורתך ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך ויחד לבבנו לאהבה וליראה את שמך ולא נבוש ולא נקלם ולא נכשל לעולם ועד כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו נגילה ונשמחה נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. We gather our seat together.
והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותולכנו כמומיות, לארצנו כי אל פועל ישועות אתה, ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע באמת, להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה, ברוך אתה אדוני. הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
ואהבת
את אדוני אלוהיך
בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך.
וכתבת על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. אם שמוע תשמעו מצוותיי שאנוכי מצוות שלומי ביתוי מה וכבי אסף דקן דחבי ישראל וחרף עלינו בכם הצער לשמיים ויום חתר בסדמה וג'נת והדרך אפשר לבנות וכתום המזות למען ירבו ימיכם וימיכם ולמען השם ויאמר אדוני שלמה ודבר ובני ישראל בהם הדברים הציצית וכנפי ביתיהם ודורתם הציצית הכנף בתותחי לפהיל ומציצית וראיתם אותם ומקום מצוות להם ועשיתם אותם ולא תטור אבל למען יזכרו
מי כמוך, page 122. מי כמוך באלים אדוני,
מי כמוך נדע בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף
שירה חדשה, שיבחו גאולים לשמך שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופדחינו ממך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Please rise for the Amidah. We are going to begin together. 32, page 132.
ברוך אתה אדוני ואלוהי אבותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק, אלוהי יעקב, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אלוהינו, גומל חסדים טובים, מקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מסוד חכמים ונבונים, ומלמד דעת מבינים, אפתחה פי בתפילה ובתחנונים, לכלות ולחנן פני מלך מלכי המלכים, ואדוני האדונים.
We continue on the bottom of page 134. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, נכתבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים.
מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה מתים אתה, רב להושיע, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים לרופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, אישי עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך. מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך אף הרחמים זוכר יצוריו לרחיים ורחמים ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהי ציון לדור ודור. הללויה. ואתה קדוש יושב תהילות ישראל.
We remain standing for the Kedusha, page 142.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום. כך כתוב על יד נביאך. כך כתוב על יד נביאך. וכך זה לזה ואמר. וכך זה לזה ואמר. קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אז כל רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מתנסים לעומת שרפים לעומתם, ברוך יאמרו. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון. מתי תמלוך בציון. בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך. לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים. לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים. בעינינו תראינה מלכותך כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. על ידי דוד משיח צדקך ימלוך אדוני לעולם. ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך.
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור נגיד גודלך.
ולנצח נצחים קדושתך עוד נקדיש, קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לעולם לעולם ועד. לדור ודור,
לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך.
כי אל מלך גדול, כי אל מלך גדול, וקדוש וקדוש אתה. כי אל מלך גדול, כי אל מלך גדול, וקדוש וקדוש אתה.
And we continue quietly with those prayers in the prayer book or the prayers in our hearts through page 150. We may be seated upon completion. We continue with Avinu Malkeinu, page 152. Please rise.
אבינו מלכנו, אין לנו מלך אלא אתה. אבינו מלכנו, עשה עמנו למען שמך. אבינו מלכנו, חדש עלינו שנה טובה. אבינו מלכנו, חננו אבינו מלכנו, חננו ועננו, כי אין בנו מעשים, עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד, עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד, והושיענו. אבינו מלכנו, חננו ועננו. אבינו מלכנו, חננו ועננו, כי אין בנו מעשים.
Please be seated. We continue with the Kaddish Shalem, page 156.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
ועלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, וחייכונו ויומכונו וחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו.
אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה, יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה.
בריחו.
לעילה לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמה ואמרו.
אמן.
תתקבל צלול תכון ובאותנות תכון, דכל ישראל קדם עבורון די בשמיה ואמרו.
אמן.
יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו.
אמן.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו.
Amen. We continue with the Torah service. You can find this on page 160. Even though it says at the top of the page we rise, we don't really have to rise yet. Let's conserve our strength, and we'll rise in the middle of the page. We continue page 160.
אין כמוך ואלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך, מלכותך, מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל
דבר. Adonai Melech, Adonai Malach,
Adonai
Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed.
Adonai Uz Le'amo Yiten, Adonai Yevarech Et Amo V'Shalom. Avarachamim Hetiva B'Rtzonecha Et Zion Tivnei Chomot Yerushalayim Tivnei Chomot Yerushalayim.
Please rise.
Kivecha levad batachnu, melech ram venisa, Adon olamim. Vayehi binsoch Aaron, vayomer Moshe, Chuma Adonai, ve'afutzu oivecha, vayanusu mesanecha mipanecha, ki mitzion tetzeh. דבר אדוני מירושלים. ברוך שנתן תורה תורה. ברוך שנתן תורה תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. אדוני, אדוני, אל רחום וחנון, ארץ כפיים ורב חסד באמת, נוצר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע וחטאה ונקה. אדוני, אדוני, אל רחום וחנון, ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת, נוצר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע וחטאה ונקה. אדוני, אדוני, אל רחום וחנון, ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת, נוצר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע וחטאה ונקה. יהיו לרצון, יהיו לרצון, אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך. אדוני צורי, אדוני צורי, אדוני צורי, וגולה לי. ואני תפילתי לך, אדוני, את רצון אלוהים ברוב חסדך. ענני, ענני, באמת אישך. ואני תפילתי לך, אדוני, את רצון אלוהים ברוב חסדך. ענני, ענני, באמת אישך. ואני תפילתי לך, אדוני, את רצון אלוהים ברוב חסדך. ענני, ענני, באמת אישך. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני
אחד אלוהינו, גדול אדוננו, קדוש ונורא שמו.
אחד אלוהינו, גדול אדוננו, קדוש ונורא שמו.
גדלו לאדוני איתי, ומרוממות שמו יחדיו. האדוני הגדולה והגבורה והתפארת והנצח וההוד, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ. אדוני הממלכה והנתנשאת בכל ראש. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו השתחוו לדום רגליו, קדוש הוא. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו, כי קדוש, כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו.
Please be seated. It's become clear to you that with the concerns that we have with COVID transmission, that allowances have been made during services, and we, along with many, many other congregations in the world, have adjusted the service so that the opportunities for extending services, for long praying, for contact with each other are minimized. And so you can see from the way in which we've structured our services that we are going to be having a shorter service, and we make certain adjustments and allowances in order for that to happen. What is not going to be shortened is our embracing of the Torah, our reading of the Torah, and our understanding of the Torah and of this holiday. And in order to show that the ownership of the Torah is not only within the embrace of rabbis and scholars, but of all Jews, we make sure that every year members of the congregation have an opportunity to reflect upon the season, upon the holiday, upon the meaning of the Torah cycle. And so again, we are inviting, and delightfully so, a member of our congregation who has shared thoughts over the years, and we look forward to his thoughts today, Lou Loomis.
Not a scholar. It's okay. Good morning. Happy New Year. Well, I'd like to start with just a brief anecdote. Morris, a longtime congregant of a local synagogue, was complaining to the rabbi. Rabbi, how come every time I come to shul, you do kol nidre? During the pandemic and shutdown, I watched a Netflix series called The Last Kingdom. It's a historical fictional depiction of actual events which led to the founding of England. It shows how close the Danish Vikings came to conquering the British Isles. In the years following the collapse of the Roman Empire. That's it. Yeah. The series was wonderful, filled with heroes and villains, blood and guts, swordplay, beheadings, cliffhangers, my kind of historical fiction. But most interesting of all was how the fictional hero Uhtred, son of Uhtred, of all things, an Anglo-Saxon raised as a Viking, was committed to helping the English kings win back their lands from the Viking invaders. Uhtred was kidnapped as a child and raised Viking, and although considered a hero by the English, as the fictional story goes, he believed the gods willed him to help the English defeat the Danes, no matter what he did, good or bad. So Uhtred kept repeating his mantra, destiny is all. His world was pagan, and the beliefs he embraced were as old as mankind itself, and as contemporary as today. I say contemporary because these beliefs are still prevalent in our time. Maybe not so much as a belief in the old gods, the fates, the furies, but in today's secular world, people still refer to karma, DNA, the stars, and inevitability. The secular world worships the false gods of money, status, and fame. Our DNA seals our fate. We can struggle, but we can't overcome our destiny. It's futile. This is a widely held belief with with this fatalism comes angst, a sense of despair. But according to Judaism, fatalism and despair is a grave sin. Why is that? I'll explain. Rosh Hashanah begins with the Torah reading of the life of Abraham, who we all know started this enterprise, this lifestyle, this worldwide family today known as Judaism, also known as the people of Israel. His life and ideas have been credited with starting the two other great monotheistic religions, Christianity and Islam. In fact, what made Western civilization and culture so wonderful began with Abraham, and it was the rejection of paganism. In contrast to the religions of hopelessness and despair, our Torah tells us of how God instructed Abraham to leave his home in Babylon and go to a land that he, God, will show him in the area today known as the Middle East. The pagan gods were territorial, but this God is different. And this God told Abraham that he would not just be the God like those found in Babylonia, but the one universal God found everywhere and above all other beliefs. This God would instruct Abraham's people on how to live an ethical life, an abundant life, a life of joy and freedom. Furthermore, God teaches Abraham that we are never to give up hope. We can overcome adversity, and just as Abraham was tested with many difficulties he had to overcome, we, his followers, also will be tested. But we are to be joyful and spread this joy throughout the world wherever we go. God also tells Abraham that he, God, will teach him and his followers how to lead a good, ethical life, one worth sharing with the world. Abraham finds it difficult and slow going. There are setbacks. He learns that if he and his followers stick together, they will ultimately realize that they are an eternal people that won't be defeated. Jewish history records that we, his followers, are a people capable of adapting to new locations, overcoming all kinds of adversity, and renewing ourselves so we can become stronger, more vibrant, and ever hopeful. Right now, we are experiencing the high holidays, a 10-day period of renewal, beginning with Rosh Hashanah, the start of the year 5783, and concluding with the final prayers on Yom Kippur. So the process begins. We have a great opportunity to reflect on the many things that have occurred over this past year and take stock of our mistakes while renewing our determination to do better. It is our tradition to make the effort to apologize to others for any hurt we may have caused them and reflect on how we can do better in the coming year. This is how the sages tell us we are reshaping our lives and attempting to not let setbacks get us down. Rosh Hashanah is the great reset. Just as we would do when our smartphones or other electronic devices start to get glitchy, at no fault of our own, I might add, we shut down our devices and reboot and clear away the garbage. This is what we do every Rosh Hashanah. Of course, Judaism enables us self-renewal on a daily basis. But these high holidays are a power boost, like an energy drink in that direction. Jewish history has been described as the story of a people's survival against unbelievable and impossible odds. It's also been called miraculous. We're still standing. We're still free. Today, there are no Hittites, no Romans, no Greek Empire, no pharaohs, but the Jews remain. We're still an example to the oppressed and downtrodden all over the world. The overcoming part, the fighting part, the struggles we face as a people haven't changed, but the lessons we have learned are things we can and have shared to all freedom-loving people everywhere. But hey, we're Jews. We love to complain, right? In fact, that's what we're famous for, kvetching. For over 3,500 years, we Jews have perfected kvetching as an art, which is not only how we've remained sane when the Cossacks were chasing us, but it's also the reason that there are more Jewish shrinks than Jewish serial killers. Each of us has our very own list of personal kvetchables. If you look at the number of Jewish shrinks, Freud, Adler, Fromm, Schuster, for example, what did they do? They turned kvetching into a profession. Lie on the couch and tell me your tsuris. I'll not only listen, I won't say a word. That'll be $500. Of course, Jewish mothers not only do it for free, they even pay their children to take up residence on the sofa, provided they take their shoes off. But back to Abraham. This credo or faith of Abraham marks the birth of human responsibility built on the principles of righteousness, the joining of the divine command and human action to do what we should, to become co-architects with God for a just and righteous social order. Freedom to act is not to do whatever we like, but ethically to do what we should. The higher authority is God, not man, and not man-made governments. This was revolutionary when Abraham first introduced it, and still is today. It allows us to break free of the pagan grip of slavery, despair, and hopeless inevitability. Freedom also gives us something special, which I noted earlier, and that is to live with joy. As Abraham introduced us to a religion of freedom, we no longer have an excuse to shirk our responsibility, to behave well, and set an example for others. It's now up to us, our own selves, to make a better world by first becoming better people. With Rosh Hashanah on us, we can start with ourselves and make our families happier, which influences others and makes the world a better place. I'd like to close with a story about a wise old Rabbi from the shtetl. I have to use body language because that's how you tell these stories, right? The wise old Rabbi was dying. The members of the community gathered around his bed, trying to make him comfortable. They gave him some warm, farm-fresh milk to drink, but he refused it. Then one of the townspeople took the glass back to the kitchen, remembering a bottle of locally made schnapps whiskey received as a gift the previous year. He opened the bottle and poured a generous amount of the warm milk into the warm milk. Yeah. Back at the Rebbe's bed, he held the glass to his lips. The Rebbe drank a little, then a little more. Before he knew it, he had drunk the whole glass down to the last drop. After which the Rebbe sighed and seemed to relax with a peaceful look on his face. As his breathing grew shallower, the people sensed the end was near. And so they pled, "Rebbe, please give us some wisdom before you die." With one great final effort, the Rebbe raised himself up in bed with a pious look on his face and said, "Don't sell that cow." I wish everyone a joyful, healthy, abundant new year, a year of hope, a year of forgiveness, a year of new starts, a year of goodness. Happy 5783, everyone.
Yesher koach, Lou. Lovely. Lou also contributes regularly to our Shir Notes, superbly edited by Stan Schroeder. He has articles every month, and I encourage you to read them. By the way, I've been able to figure out who actually reads the Shir Notes. Anybody who has come up to me in the last few weeks and says, "So how was your summer vacation?" They haven't read the Shir Notes. But by the way, speaking about psychiatrists, you heard about the guy who went to the psychiatrist. He says, doctor, you have to help me. These butterflies keep landing on me. And the psychiatrist said, well, stop getting them on me. You have to be a psychiatrist to understand it. The Torah service is going to continue now then with the reading, and the process is going to be a little bit different than usual, again, because of COVID restrictions. So when you have an Aliyah, please come up and you'll keep masked and you will say the brachot and then have the Aliyah. And then afterwards, rather than lingering here, you'll go back to your seat. I'm going to ask for Steve and Lou to please come up as the shamash and the gabaim, rather. We're going to turn now to page 168 for the reading of the Torah. And Alan Berman, Robin Berman, and Evan Berman, if you could please come forward, you will be called up in Hebrew in a moment. And Lou, you can stand on the other side. Yeah, please.
Yamdu, Abraham, Yosef, Reuben, Ben Noah, Kohen,
Rachel.
Rachel, Mesha, Bat Yitzchak, Lev, Yishai, Kasach, Ben Rachel, Masha, Abraham, Yosef, Reuben, Rishon. Baruch Adonai, Amen. Adonai, Pakad Tzara Kasher Amar. Ayas Adonai, L'Sara Kasher Diber. Atahar V'Teled Tzara, L'Abraham Ben Lizkunav. L'Moadei Asher Diber Asa Elohim. Vayikra Avraham, Hashem Beno, Hanoled Lo. Asher Yelda Lo Sarah Yitzchak. Vayamal Avraham es Yitzchak Beno, Ben Shmonat Yamim, Kasher Tzivaso Elohim.
Marcy, I will call up the two since Steve is also reading the Torah. Yamdu, Yehuda ben Nehemiah, V'Masha bat Hillel, Sheni.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaBarach.
Baruch Adonai
Baruch Le'olam Bo'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'nasan lanu es torato. Baruch atah Adonai nosein ha'Torah.
Amen.
Amen. V'Avraham ben me'at shana, v'hivoled lo es Yitzchak beno, v'tomer Sarah tzachok, asa li Elohim, Kol Hashomea Yitzchak Li, Vatomar Mi Mila Liavraham, Heni Kavanim Sora, Ki Alati Vein Litzkunav, Vayigdal Hayeled Vayigamel, Vayas Abraham Mishtegadol, Vayom Hagamel Es Yitzchak, Vatera Sarah Es Ben Hagar Hamitzrid, Asher Yalda Liavraham, Mitzafek, Atomar Liavraham Garesh, Aima Hazos Vespana, Kilo Yiras Min Ben Aima Hazos, Im Bene Im Yitzchak, Vayera Hadavar, Me'ad Bene Abraham Al Odos Beno, Vayomer Elohim El Abraham, Al Yira Beinecha Al Anar V'Ala Masecha Kol Asher Tamar Elecha Sarah Shoma B'Kola Ki B'Yitzchak Yikra Lecha Zerah. Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher nasan lanu Torah semes, v'chai olam nata b'sochenu, baruch atah Adonai, nosein haTorah. Yamdu Yisrael ben Moshe Lev Leah Golda Sima Bat Chayim B'Chaya Shalishi. Baruch Adonai Barak Le'olam Bo'ed.
Elohim melech haolam, asher b'haranu mikol ha'amim, v'natalanu et Torah. Baruch atah Adonai, nosein haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'gam es ben ha'ima l'goy asimenu, ki zarachahu. Vayaskem Avraham b'boker vayikach lachem v'chamas mayim vayiten el Hagar sam al shikma v'sayeled vayishalchecha v'telech v'teita b'midbar bi'er shava vayiflu hamayim min hachamas v'tashlech es hayeled tachas achad hasichim Vate Vateshev La Mineged Harchek Kamakave Kashes Kiem Ra El Ara Bamos Hayeled Vateshev Mineged Vatisha Eskala Vatvech Vaishma Elohim Eskol Hanahar Vayikra Malach Elohim El Hagar Min Hashamayim Vayomer La Malach Hagar Al tiri ki shama Elohim el kol hana'ar v'asher husham kumi se'i es hana'ar v'achaziki es yadech bo ki legoy gadol asimenu v'yifkach Elohim et zeineha v'tera ba'er mayim Vatelech vatimla es hachamas mayim vatask es hana'ar vayehi Elohim es hana'ar vayigdal vayeshev bamidbar vayehu rova kashes vayeshev bamidbar paran vatikach lo imo isha me'eretz Mitzrayim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah temet, v'chayei olam notat b'shufenu. Baruch atah Adonai, notein haTorah.
As as Becky and Gary make their way up, we're going to do a Misha Be'erach for those who are not well. And so in a moment, I'm going to ask you to just say to those around you the names of the people that you would like to pray for a speedy recovery. Misha Be'erach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Yimotenu Sarafka Rechav Aliyah Hu Yevrepeh Et HaCholim. May he who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal these who are sick. Please say the names to each other. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yishlach lehem b'mehira refuat hanefesh v'refuat haguf v'toshach Yisrael v'nomar amen. May the All-Merciful restore these people to full health and to full vigor, along with all others who are stricken with illness, and let us say amen. We come now to the reading for the fourth Aliyah. You can follow on page 172.
Sure.
Gabriel, then Abraham, the Shir Rabbi.
Broccoli alum by Ed.
Shir Ami, Torah, Baruch atah Adonai, Untitled Torah.
Come on. Vayehi ve'etahi, vayomer Avimelech, ufichol sar tzavo, el Abraham lemor, Elohim imecha, b'chal asher ata oseh, v'ata yishava li, Elohim ina im tishkor li umelni umechti, kachesed asher asita imecha, ta'aseh imadi, v'im haaretz asher dartaba. Vayomer Abraham anochi ishavea, v'hochiach Abraham et Avimelech al odot be'er hamayim asher gazlu avdei Avimelech. Vayomer Avimelech lo yadati mi asa et hadavar hazeh. V'gam ata lodat higata li, v'gam anochi lo shamti bilti hayom, vayikach Abraham sonu vakach, vayitain lavimelech, vayichatu shnehem berit.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'ha'eolam natan bechotenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yamod, Marachai ben Avigdor, Hamishi.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach. Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Voed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'charbonu mikol ha'amim, na'atalonu et torto. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
אמן. ויצב אברהם את 7 כבשות הצאן לבדהן. ויאמר אבימלך אל אברהם, מה הנה 7 כבשות האלה אשר הצבת לבדנה? ויאמר כי את 7 כבשות תיקח מידי, בעבור תהיה לי לעדה, כי חפרתי את הבאר הזאת. על כן קרא למקום ההוא באר שבע, כי שם נשבעו שניהם, ויכרתו ברית בבאר שבע. ויקם אבימלך ופיכול שר צבאו, וישובו אל ארץ פלישתים. והייתה אשל בבאר שבע, ויקרא שם בשם אדוני אל עולם. ויגר אברהם בארץ פלישתים ימים רבים.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam notah b'torkeinu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Yesher Koach, special thank you to Lou, to Ayana, and to Steve for their lovely reading of the Torah. And we are going to, in a few moments, turn now to our Shofar service. Before we do that, though, there are 3 very, very important English readings that I'm going to ask you to pray on your own. One for the United States of America, the other for Israel, and the last one is a prayer for peace. And so please turn to page 196 and thoughtfully read through these prayers, 196 and 198. Ki mola ha'aretz dea et Adonai kamayim liyam v'chasim. Let peace fill the earth as the waters fill the sea, and let us say Amen.
Amen.
It's an interesting juxtaposition to watch a Ram football game the afternoon before the High Holy Days. Because you look at their helmets running up and down the field, and you can't help but think about Rosh Hashanah and the blowing of the shofar, the ram's horn. So we're coming to that point. I thought he would have caught that with my first sentence, not the last one. So we come now to the blowing of the shofar, and the shofar sound is supposed to wake us up. It's supposed to alert us that a new year is coming, change has to be made. I want to suggest, and by the way, how many of you, hold up your shofars, those of you who have brought a shofar? Okay, probably for each, thank you for holding them up. It was interesting, take a look at Lou's shofar. It's actually from the same animal, but yeah, because he grew up with horns on two sides of his head that were not their same size, they had to gently euthanize that animal, and we're the beneficiaries. Right? So what animal is this from? An ibex, something from the... It's from a gemsbok. So it's a South African animal primarily. Lou was telling me before services that there's lots of shofars that are coming out of South Africa because they have so many animals that are kosher animals, and therefore their shofarot are kosher. And apparently a lot of these kinds of shofars are coming from that country. And so a quick message of the blowing of the shofar. There are many, and whatever spirit is filling you when you hear the sound of the shofar, let it motivate thoughts of change and thoughts of awakening and renewal come to mind. But here's another thought about what can be compared to the sound of the shofar. I like, and you've heard me say this before, but it's always worth repeating. It's like the sound of a lifeguard's whistle at the beach. When you hear a lifeguard's whistle at the beach, very often the lifeguard is alerting those people who are treading in dangerous waters to come back. And I think that the imagery of the shofar of doing the same thing is significant, because sometimes we end up treading in deep water because we have allowed ourselves to incrementally and granularly lead ourselves into something that we didn't realize is bringing us deeper and deeper into dangerous waters. It was interesting that they talk very often about the frog that you put in a pot of water and you turn on the heat, and the question has always been, at what point does the frog jump out of the water? And the answer has historically been, it doesn't, because by the time the water is heated up so much that it is causing injury to the frog, it's too late. And the frog doesn't jump out. It dies. It's boiled alive. I researched this. That's not true. It's just absolutely not true. Actually, and I'm sorry to shatter your illusion, but the frog jumps out way before that. As soon as the water starts to get hot, that frog's gone. So, but that is not true for people. It's not true for people because we do sometimes get sucked into something. I remember years ago, the congregation began to show signs of very serious reaction to medication that she was taking. She had a problem. She was taking Vicodin, got to the point where she was overdosing herself. And it was reflected in her behavior. And people were very, very concerned and alarmed. And they had an intervention. And they drew this to her attention. She said, I didn't realize it. I guess I just kept on because the pain got worse and worse. And even when it started getting better and better, I kept taking that Vicodin. Those of you who have been seeing the episode dealing with pharma, with OxyContin and the remarkable series for which Michael Keaton got an award for his portrayal of a doctor who was prescribing OxyContin to the point that when he began taking it himself, he also got sucked in to the damage that can be done when you slowly head into deep waters. And it's so far that you need to hear that whistle to call you back. So this is our opportunity to think about the deep waters that we're heading into. If it's not drugs or liquor, maybe it is lethargy, it is boredom, it is anger management. Think about whatever it is that we slowly have moved into those dangerous waters. And if we can't think about where we are in our dangerous cycle, let other people tell us and take their words seriously. And all of that is wrapped into the sounds of the shofar. So in a moment, I'm going to ask those of you who are blowing the shofar to spread out so that you're not blowing COVID on anybody by accident. Last year, you may remember I had a mask on my shofar, but it turned out to be impossible to blow the shofar with that mask on the end of it. So I'm just going to stay away from everybody. But we are going to begin the shofar service on page 204. And I'll ask you to please rise and for the shofar blowers to move to an area of the room where you're not too close to other people. Page 204.
מן המצר קראתיה, ענני במרחביה, קולי שמעת, אל תלם אוזנך לרחב תחתי לשבעתי. ברוך אתה, אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו, וציוונו לשמור כל שופר. ברוך אתה, אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Amen.
תקיע שברים תרועה, תקיע תקיע שברים תרועה, תקיע תקיע שברים תרועה, תקיע תקיע שברים, תקיע תקיע שברים, תקיע תקיע שברים, תקיע תקיע תרוע, תקיע תקיע תרוע, תקיע תקיע תרוע, תקיעה גדולה.
Please be seated. Page 206, page 206.
אשרי העם יודע תרועה, אדוני באור פניך יהלכון, בשמך יגלון כל היום, ובצדקתך ירומו. אשרי יושבי ביתך וללד בסלע, אשרי העם כשיגנע, תהילה לדוד ומלך השם. תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, ובורך כל בשר, שם קודשו לעולם ועד. ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah.
We're going to return the Torah to the Ark. I neglected to choose a Hagba and Galila. Who would like to be the Hagba to pick up the Torah? Two of you? Okay. Paula and Lou. We continue on page 208. Please rise. Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, Ki Nishkav Shemo Levado.
עודו על ארץ ושמיים, וירם קרן לעמו, תהילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל עם קרובו. הללויה, hallelujah. עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה, ותור מחיה מאושר.
דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה. חדש ימינו, חדש ימינו כקדם. Please be seated. Our cantor. Thank you, Michael. So our cantorial soloist, Ayana Haviv, is going to chant the Hineni, and then I'm going to give my Rosh Hashanah address for the first day of Rosh Hashanah. The idea of the cantor, representative of the congregation, reciting the Hineni, which you can follow along on page 236, the words essentially reflect the fact that the cantor, the representative, the Shalich Tzibur, cannot possibly pray in a way that truly reflects the innermost feelings and thoughts and prayers of a congregation, and accepts the fact that, well, somebody has to say the prayers, and hopefully the person who does respond to the prayers with amen are responding to a person who said the prayers as thoughtfully and as personally as could have been recited. This is the Hineni, page 236.
הנני אני ממעש, נרעש ונפחד מפחד, יושב תהילות ישראל, באתי לעמוד ולחנן לפניך על עמך ישראל, אשר שלחוני, אף על פי שאיני חדאי והגון לכך, על כן אבקשך אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק, ואלוהי יעקב. אדוני, אדוני, אל רחום וחנון, אלוהי ישראל, שדי איום ונורא, הנה מצליח דרכי, אשר אני הולך לעמוד ולבקש רחמים, ולבקש רחמים עליי ועל שכי.
Yesher Koach, Ayana. This is our opportunity to check our phones, and as much as that was beautiful accompaniment to the Hineni, let's see if we can put them on vibrate or silence them. So here's a little insight into the life and thoughts of a rabbi. Even when on summer vacation, he or she is thinking ahead to the high holy days, because we know that there's going to be a larger attendance, and we know that we want the message as the rabbi to be something that is going to be thoughtful and relevant. So if you're ever with the rabbi on vacation, and the rabbi seems to be distracted to the point that you don't get a sense that person's paying any attention to you, you should understand that's what they're thinking about. They're thinking about what should be said that is meaningful, and how can we use whatever we just read or experienced as an example in the sermon. And for me personally, I will tell you what else I worry about the most. It is, should my sermons for the high holy days be timely or timeless? Now, there are two problems with timely sermons. The first is that sometimes what is timely is also a topic that's fraught with anxiety. Right now, this is a broken world. And do we really want to bring to mind all of the issues that will provoke anxiousness? On a holiday of joy and happiness such as this, is that the goal? And the second problem with timely sermons is that you don't really know until a few days or a couple of weeks before the holidays what is going to be timely. But I do want to be topical. So what I do every summer is I write a couple of sermons that are timeless, waiting to see as we approach the high holy days if there's also something that is happening that maybe would be timely. And that's exactly what happened this summer. I wrote a couple of sermons that were timeless sermons, and I began to read the press. And a couple of weeks ago, something happened, and I put those timeless sermons aside. And this sermon is going to be timely, but it's not going to be anxiety-provoking. But I also think not only is what I'm going to share with you now going to be timely, but I'm also going to try to make it timeless as well. So now you're asking, what happened? What happened a couple of weeks ago that suddenly this is going to be a timely sermon? And here's what happened. I got an update on my iPhone. A lot of you got it too. And if you read really carefully the blurb about what was included in this update, you will realize that it now has, the iPhone, a new feature. And the new feature is called Undo Send. Undo Send. And here is the way it's described in the literature. Unsend any message for up to 2 minutes after sending it. Did you know that you have that feature now if you've been updating regularly your iPhone? And I got to thinking, who needs this? Why would somebody want to unsend a message? But then I got to thinking. And so apparently I got to thinking this. If unsending a message seems to be a necessity in people's lives, is there maybe a high holiday lesson or two that can apply to our lives, whether or not we even have iPhones or not? And my answer clearly is yes. And I'm going to share those lessons with you now. But first we have to ask, why the need for such a feature? Why is there even something called unsend? And obviously, I think we all understand why. It's because sometimes we say or we do things that we wish we didn't. And at least on our phones, we can, if we act fast enough, reverse what could have been a terrible mistake. And since in life, we don't really have such a feature, we can't just suck the words back in that we just unthoughtfully said and pretend that they weren't even uttered. Are there lessons to be learned about what we should be considering before saying or before sending something? And so my message this morning is going to be, and I'm going to come up with 3 timely but brief lessons based upon this very timely feature, because the High Holy Days is all about reflection. And it's all about what have we been doing wrong and how can we correct our behavior so that we're better for this coming year for it. So here are the questions that I think that we should be considering at that moment, that we need to exercise some kind of judgment, whether or not we're holding a phone or we're sitting at a computer or we're talking to somebody. So the first question, do I really need to say this? Do I really need to say this? One of the traps that I think that we fall into as human beings is that we sometimes just talk too much. We say things that we shouldn't. We get carried away. Sometimes it's relatively harmless, but sometimes it's really too much. Jewish tradition has a term for this. It's called Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara, Lashon Hara, very often translated as gossip, actually can translate as evil speech. And it usually applies to speaking badly about somebody behind their backs. But interestingly enough, it can also apply to saying something nice about somebody behind their backs that can lead to bad consequences. Just a really quick example. I asked some students what teachers they had in middle school. Remember, I get them in high school. So very often the first few weeks is to get to know them a little bit better. That becomes an entree into a conversation. So tell me about some of your teachers in middle school, maybe the ones that you really liked. And one kid mentioned a teacher that she had in middle school, said this was a terrific, one of the best teachers I've ever had. And standing there in that circle was another student who said, I went to the same middle school. I thought she was terrible. And then launched into this little lecture about all the terrible things that this teacher had done. And that is the way in which saying something good can have bad consequences. And that also becomes Lashon Hara. Sometimes Lashon Hara is easily committed. Sometimes it seems just to be a harmless act. It's like a throwaway line that we sometimes use. After all, who amongst us doesn't like to hear juicy gossip or tell juicy gossip? But for us, our tradition challenges us to be very discerningly careful about the things that we say that we may think is harmless gossip and we say between friends, because it may cross the line of Lashon Hara. And in fact, Lashon Hara is taken very seriously by our rabbis. They go to great lengths to warn us about them. And in fact, think about the Ashamnu, the Achetz that we recite, especially on Yom Kippur, and you will see that 1/3 of them deal with acts of speech for the sin that we committed against you by malicious speech, by scoffing, by idle chatter, by indifference, by false oaths. Maimonides provides us with a litmus test for what would or not be Lashon Hara. Maimonides said anything which, if it would be publicized, would cause the subject physical or monetary damage, or would cause him anguish or fear, is Lashon Hara. In fact, the Torah includes this in a commandment, which we're going to be reciting in congregations all around the world next Yom Kippur, this coming Yom Kippur afternoon. At the Mincha service, we read, Lo telech rechil b'yamecha. Don't go up and down as a talebearer amongst your people. And this is the most basic statement of Lashon Hara in the Torah. And in fact, only a few verses later, we have the famous V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, and love your neighbor as yourself. And this seems to suggest that we must treat other people as we would want to be treated. And if you don't want people talking about you behind your back, don't do that for other people. When we were growing up, you remember the limerick, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. That's not true. No, actually, it's sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can wound the heart. And in fact, the rabbis in the Talmud tell us that when we say words of Lashon Hara, when we publicly embarrass somebody, we might as well have killed them. They actually equate it to a capital crime. At the end of an academic year, I very often ask my high school students if a teacher ever embarrassed them in the course of the year. And almost every hand goes up. You talk to the teachers about this, as I do, and they are amazed by that. And the teachers don't go out of their way to embarrass students, but they do it because they don't always consider the consequences of their actions. How about the teacher who calls on a student when the student is unprepared to answer? That's embarrassing. How about the teacher who calls on a student and the student was just not paying attention because that student was daydreaming? If you're an adult and you say something to somebody and they say, oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention, we just let it slide. If you're a student in high school and you say that to a teacher, I just wasn't listening. That could be the opening for an embarrassing comment by the teacher. Or how about the teacher who, when a student raises his hand and asks a question, the teacher says, I just answered that question. Where were you? That's embarrassing. And students can embarrass each other and not even realize it. Just last year, a student asked a question in class, and another student snidely said to the student sitting next to him, "You don't know the answer to that?" That student never asked another question for the rest of the year. Look carefully at the wording of the paragraph that follows, the prayer that follows our Amidah, the Elohai Nitzor, because the words say, "My God, keep my tongue from evil and my lips from malicious speech." But I want to share with you another way in which we can understand Lashon Hara. And this is the one that actually makes the most sense to me. Many years ago, many years ago, I learned something about a man, a good man, a decent man, a man who was respected in the community, a man who was so highly regarded. And this man did something privately, which was a highly immoral act. And I found out about it. And I thought to myself, I can't wait till I get home. Bonnie, my wife, is going to love to hear this. But that never happened because I am very careful about sharing gossip. But then I thought to myself, all right, yeah, I'm not going to go home and tell Bonnie. Of course not. But how about in 50 years? 50 years, this guy's going to be dead. Everybody who knew him is going to be dead. It's not going to make any difference to anybody. I'll tell her then. It's almost 50 years. And you know what? I'm not going to tell her. But I want to tell you why I'm not going to tell her. See, David is going, but Bonnie's not. She knows. And the reason I'm not going to tell her, because there's another definition of Lashon Hara. It is saying something that will reduce the esteem that that person has in somebody else's eyes. And that can happen even when somebody's been dead for decades. Why do I want to share something about this beloved man that in Bonnie's memory is so well thought of? Why do I want to change that? And so I am never going to say anything. And I never try to say anything that is going to reverse somebody's feelings and thoughts about somebody in that adverse way, because that is also Lashon Hara. And so that's the first question. Do I really need to say this? Now, here's the second question that I think that we need to think about. Do I really need to send it? Do I really need to send it? Now, there's another new feature on the iPhone, and it's called scheduled send. And this is the way it's described. Schedule email to be sent at the perfect time. Now, that's actually a nice feature. Because if it's going to be somebody's birthday tomorrow and you're afraid that you're not going to be able to remember to send them a note, so you can send them a little birthday greeting and you could schedule a send tomorrow. Nothing wrong with that. That's a nice feature. But how about if somebody did something to us and we're furious and we want to send something to them that is going to make us feel really, really good because we've unloaded and we've gotten it off our chests? Because we're angry, we're indignant, we're upset. And what this new feature does, which is brilliant, is we can unload on our iPhone and type out the most virulent note, and then we could say, send tomorrow. And that's a good feature. You'll remember back in the old days when we used to write people letters, and they used to say that if you have that feeling that you really want to lay into somebody, go home, write them a letter, and then put it in the drawer. And then read it again the next day. And see if you got it off your chest enough that you're not going to send it. This is the feature that the iPhone has. The only thing is you got to remember to push, don't send. Didn't mean it. But This press send later can also be something that in our lives we need to think about. Do I really need to say it? Do I really need to send it? And then there's a third feature. Do I really need to do this? Now, here's this last question, and we don't even need to have an iPhone in our hands in order to incorporate this into our lives. If you wouldn't want to see what you just did or said on the front pages of the LA Times or in a viral video on YouTube, don't do it. I needn't recite the litany of people, both famous and not so famous, whose lives have taken a turn because of the unexpected consequences of somebody else having their iPhone camera going and recording you doing whatever you thought was being done just within a couple of people's view or by yourself. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go on Google and Google the words Karen videos. And you will see Karen video. So Karen, you know, is what they now call women or men, I guess, who just explode for absolutely no reason, like that woman in the park who a man said, will you please leash your dog? And she got so upset because he was black and she was white that she called the police and said, this man is about to attack me. He began to record that, this overreaction of this woman who clearly was having some kind of a racial episode. And when it went viral, she became known as a Karen. And now everybody who overreacts becomes Karens, and you can Google search Karen videos, and you'll see hundreds of these same kinds of posts of people who didn't realize that they were being recorded in their moment of indiscretion. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line, I think, is that the lessons to be learned about our ability to unsend and our lessons to learn about delaying sending is that on the Yamim Noraim, on the days of awe of which we now have begun, we are charged to be so very careful and introspective in the things that we do and we say. We all know people who don't have a filter. We all know people who just blurt out. We all know people who send things without realizing that how it is in words on a page might come off very differently than how they imagined it when they said it in their head, because it becomes much more abrupt, much more stinging, much more hurtful, and they probably didn't mean that at all. And what we need to do then is, if we know somebody who doesn't have a filter, realize that and just kind of live with the consequences. But if we think that we have a filter, we need to use it. Because the fact of the matter is, all of us sometimes forget that filter. And we say things and we do things and we regret it later. I want to remind you that this iPhone update of Unsend has a life of 2 minutes. And you have to decide within 2 minutes if what you sent, you want to get back before they read it. If we can do that, really quickly think about what we just did and recall the message before it's too late, maybe we can utilize that same impulse we have to critically evaluate our words and do the process 2 seconds before we do it. I swear, I read somewhere that there was a book that somebody wrote, and the book was called The 2-Second Principle. And I believe I read the blurb on it, which was, if everybody thought about what they were about to do for 2 seconds, the world would be a very different place. I've researched where in the world this book is and who wrote it. It's nowhere. I may have dreamed it up. And that would be my new book. The 2-Second Principle. If we can pause, and by the way, 2 seconds, a lot can go through our mind. If our mind, have you ever Googled something and then you saw that it said 500 million responses in 0.4 seconds. Our minds are even quicker than that. And our minds are able to sift through so many different thoughts in a brief period of time to allow us to evaluate what the consequences of our actions are going to be. And if we can utilize that for 2 seconds before we do something, rather than wait 2 minutes after we do something, think about the consequences of that. Think about if we have those 2 seconds that we're going to use our filter before we say or do anything, how our lives will change. What are the questions that we need to think about before we do or say something? Do I really need to say it? Do I really need to send it? Do I really need to do it? 2 seconds of thought. That's all it will take to guard us against doing something that will be a terrible mistake. We don't all have an unsend button, but we all have a pause button. Let's learn to use it. Our pause button. It's a timely feature with timeless consequences. We continue our service with Musaf, page 214. Please rise.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה ולעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ויאמרו
Amen. We continue with the Amidah together, page 238.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא אל עליון גומל חסדים טובים מקונה הכל מזוכר חסדי אבות ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מסוד חכמים ונבונים ומלמד דעת מבינים הבטחה פי בתפילה ובתחנונים לחלות ולחנן פני מלך מלכי המלכים אדוני האדונים זוכרנו לחיים מלך חפץ בחיים לכותבנו בספר החיים למען אלוהים חיים מלך חוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה מתים אתה, רב להושיע. מכלכל חיים חסד, וחיי מתים ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים. ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מחמוך בעל גבורות ומדומה לך. מלך מביט ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך אב הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה מתים. ונתנה תוקף קדושת היום, כי הוא נורא ואיום. ובוא תנשא מלכותך, ויקום בחסד כיסאך, ותשב עליו באמת. אמת, כי אתה הוא דיין ומוכיח ויודע ועד, וכותב וחותם וסופר ופונה מונה. ותזכור כל הנשכחות, ותפתח את ספר זיכרונות, ומעליו יקרא, וחותם יד כל אדם בו. ובשופר גדול יקטע, וכל דממה דקה יישמע. ומלאכים יחפזון וחיל אורדה יוחזון, ויאמרו הנה יום הדין. לפקוד על צבא מרום בדין, לפקוד על צבא מרום בדין. כי לא יזכו בעיניך בדין, וכל באי עולם יעברו לפניך, כי ונאמרון. כבר קראת עדרו, מעביר צאנו, תחת שבטו. כן תעביר ותספור ותמנה ותפקוד נפש כל חי, ותחתוך קצבה לכל בריאה, ותחתוך קצבה לכל בריאה, ותכתוב ותכתוב את גזרותיו. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור יחתמון. בראש השנה ייכתבון, tzom kippurei chateimun. Kama yavrun, v'chama yibarehun. Michi umi amut, mi v'chitzo umi lo v'kitzo. בראש השנה יקטבון, וביום צום כיפורי חטאימון. בראש השנה יקטבון, וביום צום כיפורי חטאימון. מי באש ומי במים, מי בחרב ומי בחיה, מי ברב ומי בצמא, מי ברעש ומי במגפה, מי בחניקה ומי בסקילה. בראש השנה יקטבון, וביום צום כיפורי חטאימון. בראש השנה יקטבון, וביום צום כיפורי חטאימון. מי ינוח ומי ינוח, מי שקט ומי יטרף, מי ישלב ומי יתייסר, מי יעני ומי יאשר, מי ישפל ומי ירום. ותשובה ותפילה וצדקה מעבירין את רוע הגזרה.
We remain standing for the Kedusha, bottom of page 242.
עשה למען שמך וקדש את שמך על מקדישי שמך, בעבור כבוד שמך הנערת צד נקדש כסוד שיח שרפי קודש, המקדישים שמך בקודש, דרים עליהם דרים אתה, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלך כל הארץ כבודו. כבודו מעלי עולם, משאר את אבשולים זה לזה. מקום כבודו לעומתם, ברוך יאמרו, ברוך אתה אדוני ממקומו, הוא יפן ברחמים ויחנם הם יחד עם שמו. ערב מבוקר בכל יום תמיד פעמיים באהבה שמה ומרים. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. Avinu Umalkeinu Umashinu Ekuyashminu Berachamav Shenit Shenit Lirikul Choy Liot Lachem Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Ahadir Ahadirenu Adonai Adoneinu Mahadir Shimcha Bechol Haaretz Behaya Adonai Lemelech Al Kol Haaretz Bayom Hahu Yeh Adonai Echad Ushmo Echad Udivrei Kodshech Katuv Lehemor Yimloch Adonai Leolam Elohayich Tzion Ledor Vador Hallelujah Ledor Vador Ledor Vador
Ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid God lecha.
Ledor Vador
Ledor vador,
Ledor Vador
ledor vador,
Ledor Vador nagid God lecha ולנצח נצחים קדושתך להקדיש קדושתך להקדיש לשבחך אלוהינו והפילו לא ימוש לעולם לעולם ועד לדור ודור
ledor vador,
לדור ודור
ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid God lecha.
לדור ודור
ledor vador,
לדור ודור
ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid God lecha.
כי אל מלך גדול, כי אל מלך גדול, וקדוש וקדוש אתה. כי אל מלך גדול, כי אל מלך גדול, וקדוש וקדוש אתה.
Please be seated. This is just going to be a momentary respite because we're in the middle of Musaf. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to recharge your battery. So I wanted to give one other really interesting, perhaps, thought about the shofar, because we have come back again to the blowing of the shofar. You can follow as we turn to page 262. This is where we're going to pick up our service. And you can see that we're going to have an opportunity to reflect on the three different themes of the reading of the cycle for blowing the shofar, the God who reigns, the God who Malchut Zichronot, who remembers. These are the themes that are going to be separated in the Musaf service. I was listening to some rabbis this last week talking about what do congregants want to hear their rabbis talk about on the high holy days. And one of the rabbis said, I think people just want hope. I think that's why they go to services. They want to go where people are, and they want to have hope that things are going to get better. And I think that this is kind of reflected in the way in which the shofar blows work out. You know that there are three different calls. There is the tikiyah, one long note. And that's kind of like when we're born and we begin our life, and it's like one long, happy childhood. But then we have three notes, the shvarim. Shvarim means to be broken. And we find that after we get into our teen years, things seem to start to get a little bit crazy, and things seem to be getting a little bit broken up. And then we get more into our life and we find the truah, the 9 staccato notes. Things seem to get a little bit even more broken. Life seems to be an endless procession of from the first tikiyah, a long note, to the brokenness, to the more extreme brokenness as life continues on. But what's the very last note that we blow? It's the tikiyah gedolah, to remind ourselves that as much as things may get shattered and broken, and we live in this broken world, eventually everything is going to end up to be one long tikiyah. That's the hope. The hope is that everything will come back together again, and we'll sing this chorus of a long note together, having instilled this hope in us with high holidays, reminding us that life begins anew and is renewed. So please rise for the shofar blowing that is part of this service. Please rise to page 262.
כי אתה אלוהים אמת, ובדברך אמת, וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל. מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל. ביום הזיכרון.
Amen.
תקיע, שברים תרועה, תקיע, תקיע, שברים, תקיע, תקיע, תרוע, תקיע, ארשת שפתנו ירב לפניך, אין רב ונישא. ארשת שפתנו ירב לפניך, אין רחם ונישא. מביט ומאזין, מביט ומקשיב לכל תיקתנו, ותקבל ברחמים, ברחמים וברצון, סדר מלכויותינו.
That was Malchuyot, the God who reigns. Now we turn to the God who remembers, page 270.
וזכרתי להם ברית ראשונים, אשר הוצאתי אותם מארץ מצרים, לעיני הגויים, לחיות להם אלוהים, אני אדוני. כי זוכר כל הנשכחות, אתה הוא מאלוהים, ואין שכחה לפני כיסא כבודך, בעקדת יצחק לזרעו היום, לזרעו היום, ברחמים תזכור, בעקדת יצחק לזרעו היום, לזרעו היום, ברחמים תזכור. ברוך אתה אדוני, זוכר הברית.
Amen.
תקיע, שברים תרועה, תקיע, תקיע, שברים, תקיע, תקיע, תרוע, תקיע, ארשת שפתנו ירב לפניך, אל רב רם ונישא, ארשת שפתנו ירב לפניך, אל רם ונישא. מבין ומאזין, מביט ומקשיב לכל תיקתנו, ותקבל ברחמים ברחמים וברצון סדר זיכרונותינו.
Now we come to Shofarot, the God who asks us to listen and respond to the call of the shofar, page 278.
כי אתה שומע קול שופר ומאזין תרועה, בנדו מלך, ברוך אתה אדוני. שומע קול תרועת עמו ישראל ברחמים. תקיע שברים תרועה, תקיע תקיע שברים, תקיע תקיע תרועה, תקיע ארשת שפתנו ירב לפניך, אל רם ונישא. ארשת שפתנו ירב לפניך, אל רם ונישא. מבין ומאזין, מביט ומקשיב לכל תקיעתנו, ותקבל ברחמים ברחמים וברצון סדר שופרותינו. רצה אדוני אלוהינו בעמך ישראל ובתפילתם, והשבת עבודה לדביר ביתך, ותפילתם מאהבה תקבל ברצון, ותהי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך, ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון ברחמים. ושם נעבדך ביראה כימי עולם ושנים קודמוניות. ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך בשמו,
שאותך לבדך ביראה נעבוד.
אמן.
ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון ברחמים. ברוך אתה אדוני,
שמו,
המחזיר שכינתו לציון.
אמן. מודים
אנחנו
לה, שתעבוד.
ועל כולם יתברך ויתרומם שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד.
אבינו מלכנו זכור לך מחבוש כעשרה וכולי דבר בחר וברוך ושם עשינו ואבו נשמת מגן. טוב חיים טוב מכל בני ביתך.
וכתוב לחיים טובים כל בני ביתך.
חיים ידעו חסר ויגבר השם אמן.
אלוהינו ואלוהי
Page 284.
אבותינו, ברכנו בברכה המשולשת בתורה הכתובה על ידי משה עבדך, האמורה מפי אהרון ובניו כהנים, עם קדושך כאמור. יברך אדוני וישמרך.
כן יהי רצון.
יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך.
כן יהי רצון.
יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום.
כן יהי רצון.
שים שלום, שים שלום, שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל יראי שמך. שים שלום, שים שלום. ברכנו אבינו כולנו כאחד באור פניך, כי באור פניך נתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו תורת חיים ואהבת חסד וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום. בטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה. בשלומך
בספר חיים ברכה ושלום
ופרנסה טובה ניזכר וניכתב לפניך אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל
לחיים טובים, לחיים טובים ושלום. What is the most important day of our lives? Today. Hayom, page 286.
היום, 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 היום תאמצנו,
אמן.
היום, 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 היום תברכנו,
אמן.
היום, 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 היום תגדלנו, אמן. היום, 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 תדרשנו לטובה, אמן. היום, היום, תכתבנו לחיים טובים, אמן. היום, 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 תשמע שבתנו,
אמן.
היום, היום, תתמכנו במבין צדקך, במבין צדקך, אמן, אמן.
Please be seated. Kaddish Shalom, page 288.
יתגדל וישתבח שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וימכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב וימרו.
אמן.
יהי שמי רבה מברך,
לעולם לעלמי עלמיה, יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה.
בריחו.
לעילא לה מלכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמה וימרו.
Amen.
תתקבל צלולת ההון ובאת הון, תכל ישראל קדם אבוהון, דיבשמיא וימרו.
Amen.
יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיא, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, וימרו.
Amen.
עשה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, וימרו.
Amen. We pause before chanting our concluding prayers as Jordan Pistol, our president, shares some congregational announcements.
One Mississippi, two Mississippi. Shana Tova. Greetings to all of you who've joined us both virtually and in person. A special thank you to cantorial soloist Ayana Haiviv for her beautiful renditions of the liturgy, especially the Hineni, where you gave great comfort to the congregation in that God looked upon you as the representative of the congregation and not the president. Thank you also to our ritual vice president, Stan Schroeder, for organizing our service, to Helga Unkelis for the Bema flower arrangement and the advertising, and to our membership vice president and administrative maven, Jennifer Dollins, for putting together the membership renewal and high holiday service packets. A very special thank you to all of you who have jumped through the hoops to be together again, masked and documented. Tomorrow, the second day of Rosh Hashanah, we will be offering a contemporary service beginning at 10 a.m. sharp. This guitar-accompanied full participatory service is so much fun and so spirited. Even those who don't normally come on the second day will not want to miss this. Rabbi Vorspan reminds all shofar blowers to bring their shofarot and participate in the shofar service. Remember to bring your talit to Kol Nidre services, as this is the only night of the year that we wear a talit. It is also traditional not to wear leather shoes. Services for Kol Nidre will begin at 6:45 p.m. Sharp, right? Sharp. Unsend. Oh no, it doesn't work. We will be having Shabbat services in Rita's room this coming Saturday morning, beginning at 10:30 a.m. Schedules for all services are available on our website, www.shirami.com, at the door and on your tickets. And remember to bring non-perishable food items for Sova with you to all services, because the high holy days ain't over. All right, unsend. Shana Tova.
I rarely have people who respond to my sermons so quickly and inappropriately. So unsend.
It's really more for Kol Nidre, the unsend.
Yeah, true enough. But by the way, this coming Shabbat is called Shabbat Shuvah, and some of you may remember back in the old Beth Ami days, we used to have a people problem person contest where people would answer the question, one of the things about people that bothers me is when they, and then they would complete that sentence, and then I would reveal the judge winners. And every year we used to do this, and we're going to do it again this coming Shabbat morning. So if any of you would like to finish that sentence, and I'll send this out again as an email, but you're going to finish the sentence. One of the things about people that bothers me is when they, just finish that sentence. And the idea is that the Yom Kippur is all about not glorifying in our attributes, but thinking about our liabilities, thinking about what it is that we do wrong. That's where we are able to improve, not with compliments, but with criticism. And so this is our way in which we gently can put mirrors in front of our faces. It's interesting that some people's people problem person, their character defect is their spouse. And so I may not mention the people who wrote the people problem person, so we don't point fingers, but send them in and I will share the responses with you this coming Saturday morning. So contemporary services. Tomorrow, again, a very, very fun service, even briefer than this. And I hope that you will come to and sit closer up so that the sounds of the congregation will actually be more enhanced and enriched by our closeness. Let us join together in the singing of Ein Keloheinu, page 290.
Ein Keloheinu,
Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemosienu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Adonenu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kemosienu. No del Eloheinu, no del Adonenu, no del Malkeinu, no del Moshienu.
Baruch Eloheinu,
Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atau Eloheinu, Atau Adonenu, Atau Malkeinu, Atau Moshienu, Atau Shiktiru Avotenu, Lefanecha Torah Kasamim.
Aleinu
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה יוצר בראשית, שלא עשינו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ ומשם יקרו בשמיים ממעל ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים ואלוהינו אין עוד אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו ככתוב בתורתו וידעת היום והשבותה אל לבביך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת ונאמר אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Please be seated. However, if you are in mourning or observing yahrzeit, remain standing as I am saddened to inform the congregation of the passing of Clara Rosenbluth. The funeral is scheduled for Wednesday at 12:30 at Mount Sinai in the Hollywood Hills, and there will be a Shiva Minyan at the Gribben home at 7:30 Wednesday evening. For more information, please send me an email. Those of you who who would like to communicate with me via email, it is rabbivorspan@gmail.com. Mourner's Kaddish is on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba.
Amen.
Bi'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechonu v'yomechonu v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael ba'agala u'bizman kariv imiru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbam v'vorach li'olam u'le'omei omayim. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha brichu le'ila le'ila mikol berchata v'shirata tush berchata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imeru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imeru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen. Please be seated. We conclude our service with Adon Olam, page 298.
Adon Olam
Asher malach b'terem kol yitzur nivra v'yet nasa b'chepso kol azai melech Shimon nikra v'acharei kichlotako v'vado Ra Vehu haya vehu ove vehu yeh betifara vehu echad ve'en sheni lehamshilo lehachbira beli reshit beli tachlit velo ahoz v'hamisra vehu Eli v'chai goali v'tzur hevli v'yet sahara v'hu nisi u'manosli menat gosi v'yom ekra v'yado afki ruchi v'yeti shan v'yayira v'imruchi geviati Adonai li v'lo ira. Adonai oz la'amo yitain Adonai varechad amova shalom. May the Lord give dignity unto his people. May the Lord bless his people with peace and a wonderful and happy and sweet year. Shana tova u'mituka.
Shana Tova.
Baruch tiyah, baruch tiyah.
Bigger print, so it's easier for me to read.
Oh, very good. Good to have. Literally. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Hi. Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Shana Tova.